All right, welcome back everybody to another informative episode on SpeechTherapyPD.com's YouTube channel. I'm your host, Stephanie Michele Sweigart. I am a licensed and practicing school-based SLP in Los Angeles, California, and my pronouns are she, her. Excited to see you all here today because we are going to dive into the captivating world where science meets intuition and where the search for understanding is going to take on a whole new dimension. Because in the field of speech pathology, we often sort of find ourselves wearing yet another hat, and that could be a sensory detective hat, right? It's a role that requires us to explore this intricate sensory landscape of communication, and it requires us to kind of go deep into the world of senses, sensitivities, and subtlety. We have two special guests here with us today, crossing disciplines, which I think is so wonderful because we know how important collaboration is. We have SLP Jennifer Ruckner and OT Beth Cooper. So let's welcome them. Hello, ladies. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. So let's get started. Tell us a little bit about maybe something you're involved in or where you're coming from right now or where you're living.
So actually, that's a very loaded question because Tots to Teens is located in Virginia, Northern Virginia, just south of Washington, D.C. We have been going on for about almost 16 years now. And so we have multidisciplinary team here, and Beth is our clinical director and she's OT by trade, but we do a whole lot of collaboration and a lot of work together. And we love finding and picking each other's brains for all of these things that we need to kind of figure out areas that we weren't necessarily trained in. And so therefore, we're having to figure it out because those definitely are impacting the work that we do on a daily basis with our kiddos that have some sensory needs. So anyway, I'll let Beth tell you where she is because she actually is not in Northern Virginia with us.
I'm not actually. So I'm a military wife, and so we move a lot. And so I'm currently in Southern Illinois. And so I've been with Tots since 2015 and held on tight as we've moved to Texas, back to Virginia, and now to Illinois. And so I think one of the things that's kept me here is that multidisciplinary, no boundary lines, collaboration, being with a lot of people that love to brainstorm. And this is how that grew out of that, of how do we, and honestly, I think SLPs think that OTs come out with a ton of sensory and self-regulation knowledge, and we don't. It's learned on the job, continuing education, kind of like we assume that SLPs come out with a lot of feeding knowledge, and that's not always the case. And so sensory is one of those things that we get basic knowledge, but it really does have to become a passion project for that OT. And for me, I am a sister of brothers that are autistic. I have an autistic son, a son with ADHD, and two other kiddos I think everyone has sensory needs and things to be explored. And we'll talk about that in the course as well, about knowing your own sensory needs, because it helps you understand others. But definitely looking at neurodiversity affirming care is a passion of mine, looking at how do we spread this knowledge, because OTs can't be the gatekeepers of it all, because who treats a child's development in one area? No one. We can't pull out different areas to treat a child. We have to look at that whole child, and their self-regulation and sensory processing is just such a crucial part of it.
Oh, yes. Okay, this is exciting. Absolutely. And I heard you kind of mention there, we'll be talking about that in the course. So for everybody who's listening, just so you know, you guys are both authors together on a course on SpeechTherapyPD.com called Becoming a Sensory Detective. So I think if we were to kind of highlight that course, the golden question we would have for you today really is something that so many, I think, SLPs and SLPAs and OTs, everybody's sort of asking is, what would be at least 3 takeaway strategies right now we could walk out with and begin to implement immediately to ensure that we have effective and sensory-rich sessions with our clients?
I think one of the things that stuck out to me that you mentioned at the beginning was that intuition meeting science, because I think that to me is the crux of it all, is that so much of what we do is intuition based. And then when we put the science and the why behind it, it becomes really, really powerful. And so there's so much that you go and you do and you're like, well, it worked, so I'll just keep doing that. But when you can be more effective and more powerful when you do know the whys and how to break it apart. And so what we did is we mentor a lot of therapists across all disciplines, and we found that we have systematic ways that our brain breaks down how we're looking at what a kiddo is needing sensory wise, self-regulation. And those words we use interchangeably because that is the output of good sensory processing, is self-regulation. And so what they're going to take away is a systematic flow chart and organizational chart where they can start walking through the pieces with that parent collaboration to figure out what exactly is going on so that they can pick the right way to intervene. So they'll get discrete strategies for how to go down the process, how our minds were naturally going through a process. We've put it into a very easy to use way that our younger therapists are having a lot of success with. So then
Okay,
they'll
you have me at flowchart because I love that.
I know. Well, I'm going to have you with number 2.
Here are some things to try.
That's right, because number 2 is another flow chart of how to plan your sensory session. And so there are very discrete ways of starting with vestibular, following with proprioceptive, and how we go through those methods to alert and then calm and regulate, and then how we start back over and how we know when we need to start with the process over. So that's what I love about it, is that it takes something that's very, when you say sensory, people think voodoo, voodoo. We're talking about the brain and the spinal cord and everything that's coming in and everything we're putting out. And when we put a systematic way of looking at it, it just becomes clean and nice for everyone. And then the third way is the why. And the third thing that they can take away is that why so they can explain to the parent what they're doing and why this might look a little bit different, why it's important, and how to explain what their sessions are going to look like, and the whys and the hows of what they're getting to give that parent the confidence as well.
I love that. Now, would you be able to kind of tease us with maybe an example in each of those areas that you mentioned, like on your flow chart, and what you're looking for and identifying, and then how a session might flow, and then what we would follow up with the parent?
Yeah. So one of the things that when we're thinking about that flow chart that we have to think about is what could be behind what we're seeing. And so it goes through, is this a medical thing that we're looking at? Is there something that's changed in the environment? And there's a whole series of them that we will go through, but that's why it's so critical to have that parent directly involved in the sessions with you, or at least being able to come in and give you some feedback, because there's a lot of those that we can't answer in our little 30-minute sessions or our hour sessions. And so being able to break it down, we're going to bring like real life therapists from our group who are going to talk about like a kiddo that they have seen this with and how it's impacted the way that they've done their sessions. So that's going to be, because I don't know about you guys, but I love seeing real life videos. That makes me happy, and hearing it from somebody from just Beth and I. So, so that's one way. Beth, if you want to share something else.
I have a teaser of somebody that used the flow chart, going through the medical, the environmental, then putting themselves into those shoes and seeing the supports that they could use. And it ended up boiling down to underwear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that is underwear completely impacted the speech session. And how often do we come down to that it was the underwear, and it really took being a detective to figure out that was the situation that happened. That was the change.
It's interesting. I'm having a flashback of a student that I worked with, and she was a young adult, and she always appeared to be very uncomfortable by her undergarments and would be pulling on them and so distracted by them. And I remember there being discussions with the family about, what we're putting her in and what she wears. And so, yes, it's so true. Like all these things about, the lights, things that we touch, things that we hear, things that we're tasting, all of the different senses I'm always dimming my lights. If it's too bright, I'm like, okay, this is too much for me. But like my partner will be putting our daughter to bed, and it's like, 8:30 and all the lights are on full blast. I'm like, no, we need to dim this down. We need to get into bring it down while we're doing books and relaxing, because, just something as simple as that, the lights can like be overstimulating for me at that time of the night. So
I
thank
had
you.
I had a kiddo that was meltdown, lots and lots of meltdowns. It ended up being the smell of the expo marker. A simple expo marker, which then was just a switch. You know, it's simple things that you can look at, but if you don't have that concrete way, I've had a kiddo that it's an ingrown toenail that we stop at medical, and it's ingrown toenail that has caused kicking and aggression and really intense behaviors. So it's really looking at what are the most important things, where do we start, and then how do we work our way down, and then what do you do with that information? How do we intervene from there?
I love that, because I'm sure there's so much information, and now you've taken it and kind of condensed it and put it into these nice frameworks for, you know, references. I think of these as like quick references you go, and I love those checklists and
just teaching your brain, right? Teaching your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so important, because if we don't do that, you know, what we see is that those higher functioning skills like speech, which we're trying to focus on, they're working. We've talked the upper brain and the lower brain. They're still working in the lower brain, but we're trying to get them to work up at the front of the brain. That's not going to work. And this is a way for us as SLPs to kind of look at it in a much different light than I ever was taught in school, because, you know, we're like, well, we got to work on these goals, but you know what? Sometimes we've got to back it up, and we've got to try to deal with just the basic things that are causing that discomfort or that, you know, dysregulation before we can even think about getting to the speech part of our brain. So this is what we'll be discussing, and how to be a better detective with these things.
Amazing. So you guys obviously have a wealth of information, and because your multidisciplinary approach, you guys are a very collaborative model, all sharing your expertise and working together. I love that. Would you be able to tell us, if people do want to reach out to you or find out more about the resources or what you have to offer, where they could go ahead and do that?
Absolutely. So our company website is always a good starting point. So they can go to tots2teens-therapy.com. That's our website. Or if you want to get in touch with Beth or I personally, for me, it's Jen at tots2teens-therapy.com and Beth at tots2teens-therapy.com are our emails, and you're welcome to reach out anytime.
I love that. Okay, so for anybody who's listening, all of those links will be posted right below this show so that you can just click and go. And we appreciate your wisdom, your expertise. We're very excited about this course. So thank you so much for just sharing all of this with our fields. Thank you so much for being here today with speechtherapypd.com too.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And for everybody listening, as we conclude today's sensory journey, I'd like to leave you with just a little reflection about our topic that we're sharing today, and this idea of being this sensory detective in the world of speech therapy. It's not just about sort of deciphering codes, right, and unraveling these puzzles. It's really a true testament to being in the moment. So, you know, increasing our awareness, that present moment awareness, and also our compassion for our clients. And it's about understanding that each of our clients' journey is so individualized to them, right? It's so unique, and every voice is really just a treasure that is waiting to be uncovered. So it's not merely just listening, but truly hearing. And it's not just observing, but truly seeing. So if we can approach our work with open hearts and minds and really build this environment where compassion and understanding can flourish, then in doing so, what we're going to do is we're going to light up that path towards communication that's going to break down those barriers and really transform the lives of our clients and their families and with our team. So until we meet again, stay present, stay compassionate, and keep exploring this beautiful spectrum of speech. To take a deeper dive into this topic and further your education, be sure to check out the incredible course, Becoming a Sensory Detective, on speechtherapypd.com with presenters SLP Jennifer and OT Beth. For other topics, when you subscribe to speechtherapypd.com, you're going to get a 1-year subscription to over 900 live and on-demand courses, and you're going to access those ASHA CEUs while you're doing it. If you're new to speechtherapypd.com, they do have a free course you can access to, so you can give it a trial and see how it fits for you. If you found this video helpful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And we will see you back here next week because we are answering more of those golden questions that SLPs and SLPs are asking. And we're bringing in those industry-leading experts like Jennifer and Beth to give you the answers you need. We will see you back here next time. Thanks so much, everybody.